Hey, I'm Jay Bierstank. Welcome to my YouTube channel. We're here for another edition of book reviews. You're looking at a deep alley here in Bangkok, Thailand. I'm staying at an English school right above me here where I'm basically working. I talk to people for conversational English skills for a couple hours a day. In exchange, I can stay here for free, and they got a kitchen and some bathrooms and whatnot. I'm staying here for a while until I figure out what I want to do next, because I'm not really sure. The coronavirus is shutting down all the schools and everything around Thailand, so I was gonna teach, but now I'm not. So I'm here in the leeway, thinking about what I'm gonna do, reading books, and I've read The Art of War by Sun Tzu. I don't know how to say the name actually, I haven't looked it up. But The Art of War came into my field of interest after I read Musashi, because Musashi, a book by Yuji Okasawa, I believe, a really good book. I reviewed it on my channel, you can check it out. It's a Japanese book, and in that book they reference The Art of War a lot for its, not only for its tactical purposes, but for its psychological significance and kind of the advantageous positions you can put yourself in if you're thinking and acting under someone who is following the principles of leadership and discipline of the Art of War. So, let me rewind a little bit. This book was written by I believe it was a general in China. The year, I'm not exactly sure. I believe it was maybe 500, 600. So, you know, a good amount of time ago, about 1500 years ago. And the book basically goes over military tactics of how to efficiently win a war basically, and how to command your troops, how to understand group mentality, understand the psychology of men to lead your troops and not have them be insubordinate, or, you know, have the balance of power be correct and everything. And, you know, obviously I'm not a general, and I'm probably never going to lead large groups of men into war, but I was really interested in this book because I love to try to interpret metaphors. So I read this book as one big metaphor for micro battles and micro wars, which I think are being fought. The words I will use in this video aren't necessarily very resonant with me. I don't like to think of life as a war. I don't like to think of ourselves as fighting. But I mean, at the end of the day, words are pretty interchangeable. So a fight, you know, it can basically just mean a struggle, or it can mean anything that you're going through in your mind that is causing you some kind of dis-ease you have to get through. So this book was interesting to read because the principles basically for winning a war, you know, achieving victory, the biggest principle that he said is you have to assure that you cannot be defeated before you even begin to try to defeat your enemy. So you have to secure your own defense before you try to, you know, launch an offensive maneuver, which I think is very, 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 very psychologically significant in one's life. Because you do have to have a solid foundation, a psychological, moral, orientating structure that orientates you into reality and, you know, establishes a worldview that can be shaken or crumbled or reinforced by other people, or, you know, praised or hated without it shifting you too much. You know, you have to be able to be solid in who you are and what you believe, while still being able to take in criticism, take in praise, and also being able to change and alter. Because I mean, I think that evolution is fluid, and evolution happens with anomalous information and anomalous things. So when this new information comes, you have to be able to intercept it, you know, integrate it, and then, you know, continue to still have a solid foundation and be able to be sane. So I think that's a really good thing to think about. Assuring your own defense before you try to take on someone else. You know, so I wrote it down in my journal. I will reference my journal. Securing ourselves from securing ourselves from defeat before pursuing victory. I think it's very important and very interesting thing to think about. And the next thing that I want to talk about that he talked about a lot was the rallying and the group mentality of masses of men. There was a quote in the book that said, "A brave man will never advance alone, and a weak man will never retreat by himself." And the way that you orchestrate that kind of leadership is through symbolism. So if you can create a symbol that embodies bravery, or embodies principles that you'd like your soldiers to be interested in or validate, if you can establish symbols that would basically be able to represent these things for your soldiers, then what you can do is, instead of having the brave men be the representations or the weak men following other men, you can have the soldiers all rallying to a common symbol, which you can think of like a flag, like the American flag, or you can think of it as there's a lady here that got all mixed up, these ladies passing me. She just fed a cat on the side of the road here. But sorry, I'm all messed up here. Those ladies came and they threw me off. Sorry. Impossible for brave to advance alone. The symbol can become the embodiment of bravery. Yeah, so basically I like to think of it as like the embodiment of bravery. So a brave man will be able to lead men into battle. A weak man will be able to get others to leave the battle. So if you take out the man and you turn the man into a symbol, you can have the men rally around a symbol, which is very interesting to think about, because a symbol can be as something like a smile. Let's say that I smile at someone, I'm representing a symbol of bravery, which entices people to do the right thing, I believe. So I think that there's a psychological significance there too. Very interesting to think about. Yeah, but it helped me understand symbolism a lot more, I think. Next thing I want to talk about, there's a lot of talk about terrain and how to move troops through different terrains and also different types of battles and all of these things, and there's a lot of this book that might not seem practical or interesting to you at all, but I think it's really worth the read because one, it's a classic piece of literature. It's very common for business men to want to read to understand how to be more effective leaders and attain, victories or what you might have. But yeah, I think that there is micro victories to be obtained in the macro game of life every second. So being able to be ready to seize upon those victories, I think, is the key to happy life. Next one is so his theory about victory and about leadership and about really being able to have ultimate access to your enemy's weak points is to be deceptive and to be cunning. So there was a really big point in this one that we have to accommodate ourselves to our enemy's weaknesses, which I really think is a great idea and a great way to think about micro battles. Because if you appear, naive, and you appear to be someone who can be controlled and someone that can be overpowered, then you can expose your enemy to lots of weaknesses like arrogance, or to they think that you're insignificant and not dangerous and things like that. So I think accommodating yourself to your enemy's weakness is really important, and it's really hard for a lot of people to do that because it actually makes you feel less powerful and less significant, because you think by giving someone else the power you're taking it from yourself. But I think that the biggest act of courage and biggest act of power is to give it away. And in a situation where you're trying to obtain a victory for someone, appearing as something that is not a threat to them makes them a much easier target for you. So I think that's interesting to think about too. Yeah, and then there's just some other stuff about, when you appear weak and when you open up the enemy's vulnerabilities, you have to be quick to strike and all of those kind of things. But really, I think it's an interesting book, and I think it's worth reading, and I think the tactics in it can be hard to interpret, and I kind of interpreted them a lot in my own mind, but now when I'm saying them, it's a little bit harder to come off as not fucking psychotic. But I think it's interesting psychological significance and interesting ideas. Yeah, that's my review of the book. It was a short book, and it's kind of a hard one to review because it's so technical, and the interpretations of it can be so infinite, because however you think about the world and whatnot will define how you translate the book. But I would recommend a reading. It only takes a couple of days, and it's a good book to reference back on because it's basically a bunch of excerpts. So, you can read 1 or 2 a day and write about them. That's what I did. I read like a chapter a day and I would write about it in my journal, so yeah, interesting stuff. It's good to be versed, I think, in the classic literature. Thanks, guys. If you didn't make it through the whole thing, I understand this might be kind of a boring one for some of you, but if you did and you feel where I'm coming from, take a read because I think you'll benefit. Thank you. Peace. Take it easy. Much love from Thailand.